Recording in progress.
Good morning. I'd like to call this regular board meeting of the Desert Water Agency to order on March 5th, 2024 at around 8 o'clock. Just a few housekeeping items for members of the public who are attending in person and for staff and the board here also in person. If you could mute your electronic devices during the course of the meeting, that would be appreciated. And for those of you that are participating remotely, if you could keep yourself muted on the video call until you are ready to speak during public comment, if that's what you'd like to do. Also, I will be calling on directors in roll call order for discussion and questions in the following orders: Director Gracia, Director Bloomer, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega. And all votes will then be conducted via roll call. And with that, I would like to ask Vice President Bowman if he'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So may we have a roll call, please?
Director Gracia,
Present.
Director Bloomer,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Present.
Vice President Bowman,
Present.
and President Ortega.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. Item number 4 on our agenda today is public comment on items not on today's agenda. So this is an opportunity for members of the public, whether in person or via the Zoom call, to make statements or comments related to the regular business of this agency. We ask that you keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And Ms. Hoffman, did we receive any public comments, or Ms. Baca, any public comments via email or such?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you. And then if I don't see, I see a hand raised up online, and I think it's Mr. Gray. If we could unmute him and he can have his 3 minutes.
Mr. Gray, can we ask that you unmute yourself? Mr. Gray, are you able to hear us? We're asking that you unmute yourself.
Oh, now his hand has gone down, so I'm not sure if that means he doesn't want to participate, or at this point, I think we'll continue to item 5, which would be public comments on today's agenda. And then similarly, if there are members of the public who would like to speak at this point regarding an item that is on our agenda, I ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public in the room or online that would like to participate in public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, so we can move to item 6, the consent calendar items. We have 5 items on the consent calendar today. If there are board members that would like to pull one of those items for further discussion, please let me know now. Otherwise, I would look for a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented.
I move we accept the consent calendar as presented.
Great, thank you. Could I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. So I have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7A, we have several action items, starting with 7A, request adoption of resolution number 1321, adopting a retiree medical benefits for employees of Desert Water Agency hired after May 1st, 2007. And that would be Ms. Hopping, please.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. This is a request to adopt Resolution 1321, and that is to have a medical benefit created for employees hired after May 1st, 2007. Employees hired prior to that date receive fully paid medical benefits at retirement at age 50 or higher and with 12 or more years of service. Currently, employees hired after May 1st, 2007 are not eligible for any retiree medical coverage upon retirement. We have had an increase in employee turnover recently, and the staff resigning, we do exit interviews, and at that time, in each case, one of the reasons they left was to go to an agency that has retiree medical. And so we did a benefits survey, and we found other local water districts are offering retiree medical coverage as part of their benefits packages at different levels and percentages paid. So we met with the HR committee on November 28th, and we met with the finance committee in December, and we were given support to open negotiations with the Desert Water Agency Employee Association to develop a retiree medical plan for those employees that are not currently eligible. So we negotiated that retirees at 12 or more years of service and who meet age eligibility to retire per their CalPERS formula. Management proposed that the agency would pay 80% of medical insurance premiums, and the retirees would be required to pay 20% in order to stay on the plan after retirement. The plans are negotiated to end once the employee or the retiree is Medicare eligible. There would be no more coverage from the agency. We went to a vote to the employees, and the employees voted unanimously to support the retiree medical plan. So the fiscal impact, there'd be no impact to the current budget. The fiscal impact will be approximately $184,000 annually for the projected plan period. It just meant it's going to depend on how many people are eligible and if they elect to join the plan. And then once we take into the consideration the turnover costs, we could realize $162,000 net savings per year over the projected plan, should employees not leave Desert Water Agency for that reason. So we recommend that the Board of Directors adopt Resolution 1321, adopting a retiree medical plan for Desert Water Agency employees hired after May 1st, 2007. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
Maybe a couple.
Okay.
So this is not retroactive to people that have already retired?
Correct. However, at this point in time, nobody has retired that would have been
Okay.
eligible under this
Okay.
plan.
And the number that you mentioned, that's on the outside? That's an estimate on the outside what it would cost?
Yes.
For that to be expended, those people would have to retire, isn't that right?
Yes, it would be after retirement, it would
Right.
cost that. Mhm.
It seems like it would take quite a while for it to get up to that number unless you have a whole bunch of people going out in the same year. I'm trying to gauge, how much.
Esther did the calculations over a period of, I think, 30 years or something, right?
The calculations currently are over a period of 46 years. And we don't ramp up to meeting kind of that $180,000 per year until 2034. So it's going to be a slow ramp up. We're going to see a peak, and then it's going to come down and start to normalize because we have two different classes of employees. Our
Right.
CalPERS who get to our classic who get to retire a bit sooner at age 55. Our PEPRA is in between 60 and 62, according to the plan. So we're going to see a little spike in between 2039 and 2045, and then it's going to come back down to where we're going to hit about that average on an ongoing basis.
I just wanted to get comfortable with it likely not affecting our 218 process, during this period we're
Correct.
in now.
Exactly. Yes. It does not impact our current 218 where, we might have a very small increase in our
Right.
medical expenses that is projected within the next 4.5 years. By the time that it really starts to increase, it is when we will have already done another 218 and we will be able to include these figures in that planning process.
Thank you. I can think of a lot of places that we can find efficiencies in the system, but denying medical care to our retirees wouldn't be one of them. So I'm happy this is here. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bloomer.
No questions. We've reviewed many options and all the numbers in the, some on the HR committee and the finance committee. So I feel very comfortable, and I'm glad the Employee Association voted unanimously for it.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Yes, I think at the Finance Committee, we saw a really compelling case to support this resolution because the people we're losing are not the 20-somethings, the 40-somethings. Very skilled and experienced people, and they look ahead and see, I have a 5 or 6 year gap in my medical coverage. And they scoot off to some other agency, not far away usually, that doesn't have that gap. So the case, as I said, is compelling. I think we just have to do this. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman.
No questions.
Thank you. Neither do I. So if we could have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Hoffman.
Move.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
no, go ahead. No, you're right. You're right. Please.
Did you want to do it? Go ahead. Okay. I move we adopt staff recommendation on item 7A, resolution adopting retiree medical benefit for employees at Desert Water Agency.
Thank you.
And I'll second.
Thank you. So I have a first from Director Grasha, a second from Director Bloomer. Now may we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7B, request adoption of revised position classification and salary chart dated February 2024. Again, Ms. Hopping, please. Thank you.
Thank you, President Ortega, members of the board. This is a record-keeping requirement that we have with CalPERS, that whenever there's a change to an employee's salary, it has to be reflected in a published salary chart that's approved by the board, and it has to be in a specific format with the titles and the salary on the same chart. So the only change on this chart is to the general manager's salary, with Steve Johnson being promoted. It's to reflect his contracted amount for salary. So it's just to make sure we're accurate for CalPERS. So I'm requesting that you adopt the revised classification listing and salary chart as presented with effect of the pay period, which includes February 22nd, which is the date of Steve's promotion. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
I will try to ask a question to maybe kick something into gear here on this subject. As I recall, his contract didn't call for a change in salary, or it was so minimal. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was a minimal change from what Mr. Krause's
One of
was.
the things that I keep thinking about in regard to this is that as a board, have we given a salary comparison study any thought, and whether or not maybe this is the time to, because we're going through a process now with Mr. Johnson coming in for his term as general manager, and then down the road very soon we'll have a new one, to make sure that our salary, I don't think we did it when you came on.
We did.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Yeah, we do general manager salary surveys on an annual basis. So we do look at it on an ongoing change.
All right.
Steve's increase was based on his current salary and to reflect his new position, obviously. And Mark's had been in the position for a bit longer, so that's why there's an adjustment.
I guess why I thought of it the way I did was it seemed like it would have been a healthier increase than it was, and that's kind of why I thought, well, are we being fair to him and to the agency, and is there any surprises down the road? So if you guys are comfortable, then I'm comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bloomer?
No questions.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
There were some other promotions, but they're within this chart already.
Correct, they are.
Okay. I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman?
None from me.
Okay, and I have nothing else. So I'll look for a motion to accept the resolution as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept adoption of the revised position classification and salary chart dated February 2024.
I'll second that.
Thank you. First from Director Bloomer, second from Vice President Bowman. Ms. Hoffman, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Our next item is 7C, request authorization for general manager to enter into agreement between the State of California Department of Water Resources and DWA Technical Support Services Agreement number 0049. And I believe that's Ms. Rapala.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. Staff is requesting authorization for the general manager to enter into an agreement between the State of California Department of Water Resources and Desert Water Agency, a groundwater resource or groundwater sustainability agency, under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Technical Support Services Program Agreement number 0049. As we've mentioned to the board before, there were several locations in the Coachella Valley that were identified through the SGMA and salt nutrient process as having a lack of groundwater data in the shallow aquifer. Desert Water Agency, in an effort to fill those gaps, along with other GSAs throughout the Coachella Valley, submitted well service requests to DWR through their Technical Support Services Program, and Desert Water Agency was approved for participation in this program for 2 wells located on DWA properties in the Indio Subbasin, along with a 3rd property in the Mission Creek Subbasin owned by a private party. On December 19th, 2023, the board authorized DWA to enter into a license agreement with DWR, which granted them access to our sites for construction, development, operation, and maintenance of these 2 wells. DWA is in negotiation with a private landowner for construction of that 3rd well in the Mission Creek Subbasin, and the location of this well is subject to change pending the results of those negotiations. The attached agreement acts more as a memorandum of understanding, so it outlines the scope of work for the project. It outlines the roles and responsibilities of Desert Water and DWR as parties to this agreement. It includes a projected project schedule and also an estimated budget for the project. In terms of DWR's roles, they're really responsible for the bulk of the project, so constructing and developing these wells, along with any of the environmental responsibilities associated with that. DWA is responsible for obtaining well drilling permits, as well as collecting samples and the water levels at the completion of the project and then moving forward. Construction for the 2 wells in DWA's area tentatively scheduled to begin in the 1st quarter of 2024, so we're getting pretty close to that time, with projected completion in June of 2025. This schedule is subject to change, of course, pending the environmental processes and all that DWR has to go through. In terms of fiscal impact, we have gone through this before with the license agreement. So funding for construction and development of these wells is being funded through the TSS program, so not a cost to DWA. We did budget $69,000 in our current fiscal budget, which would be rolled over into next year as needed. That covers the permits and any miscellaneous work that we might have to do in terms of coordinating with DWR during the construction process, and then collecting those initial samples and water levels, setting up any sort of SCADA on our end that's needed to bring that information into the office. And then upon completion of the wells, we would be responsible for annual water quality samples, as well as typically we'll do a monthly manual check of the levels just to make sure that the SCADA is correct, so we're able to compare those against each other. So we would be looking at some sort of a minimal budget for that on an annual basis. The budget that you see in the agreement is meant to cover the life of the project, so that's over 20 years. So if you break that down annually, you're looking at around $3,750 for all 3 sites. So that would be added to our annual maintenance budget for our wells. Legal counsel has reviewed this agreement, and staff is recommending that the board authorize our general manager to enter into Agreement 0049 with the Department of Water Resources for construction, development, operation, and maintenance of water quality monitoring wells in the Indio and Mission Creek subbasins. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
I don't have any really, but I would, this is for testing water quality in the area,
That's correct.
right? And I know that Mission Springs is going through a process with their wastewater treatment facility. I wondered if this is something, anything with this that has to do with that, or will we be monitoring their discharge?
So what I would say is that there were several locations identified throughout the basin. They
Yeah.
have some as well. So they are going through this process.
Right.
They've submitted applications for well service request forms just like we did. So in terms of the actual locations of their wells, I'd have to look at the map and get back to you. But I know that they've done some, as have CBWD, along with DWA. So strategically located sites to make sure that we're getting the full scope
Good.
of the basin.
That's it.
Okay. Director Bloomer,
No questions.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Just my usual curiosity. This is set up so that the Department of Water Resources drills the well, one of their
That's correct.
contractors. Why is that? Is there a compelling reason why they do that rather than we do that?
Sigma requires, at least for us, I would say, part of our project management actions includes filling these data gaps, something that's required through Sigma. And so they've developed this program as a means to help GSAs fill those gaps. It's really just a funding source that's available, and we're trying to take the opportunity to use those funds.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman.
None from me.
Okay. Nothing else from me. So I'll look for a motion to accept item 7C, the resolution.
I'll make a motion
Okay,
to
thank you.
accept authorization for general manager to enter into agreement between the State of California Department of Water Resources and Desert Water Agency.
Great, thank you.
Second that.
All right, we have a first from Director Bloomer, a second from Secretary Treasurer McKenna. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So item 8 would be the Secretary Treasurer report for January 2024. Secretary Treasurer McKenna, please.
January 2024, the operating fund received $2.7 million in water sales revenue, $72,000 in recycled water sales receipts, $22,640 in power sales from Southern California Edison for Snow Creek Hydro, $10,500 in construction deposits from 4 developer contractors. We also received $15,000 from SA Recycling, which is included in miscellaneous cash receipts for recycling meters and other scrap metal. We paid out just under $3 million in accounts payable. So our year-to-date water sales are 4% under budget. Total revenues are 2% under budget, and total expenses are 5% under budget. There are currently 23,566 active potable water accounts, and that is an increase of 27 on the last month, in December rather. The general fund received $14.1 million in property taxes, $46,000 in replenishment assessments from private pumpers, and $32,900 from Southern California Edison for the Whitewater Hydro. We paid out $4.3 million to State Water Project, making a year-to-date total of $15 million paid to the State Water Project. On the wastewater fund, we paid out $65,000 in accounts payable.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Secretary Treasurer McKenna on the report? No? All right. We'll move to the next item then, 9, General Manager's Report. Mr. Johnson, please.
Thank you. Thank you, President Ortega, members of the board. The first item we have on the report is good news for the agency. So on February 21st, DWR announced that the allocation for State Water Project will increase from the initial 10% allocation to 15% allocation. And for Desert Water Agency, that is a change from just over 5,500 acre feet to 8,300 acre feet. So it's a slight increase. This does not include the storms that have just occurred there in late February. So potentially this allocation will be increasing again. And as you can see, Jennifer Pierre with the State Water Contractors just gave a statement here and saying how the storms have allowed this to occur, and hopefully in the future here with these recent storms, we'll see that number go up. The second item is for the Bureau of Reclamation has finalized an agreement and has awarded the agency $500,000 for our AMI project. And the AMI project, that will allow us to install antennas and towers out in the fields so that our meters will be able to communicate through those towers and bring the signals into the cloud where that data will be stored. And we will not have to drive our trucks through the neighborhoods to read the meters. And very excited about that. We did also receive funding for that project in the amount of $375,000 as part of phase 2. And the total project cost are estimated at $1.2 million. And funds have been included in the current fiscal year budget to cover those costs. The next item is some students from Desert Hot Springs High School who are enrolled in the Renewable Energy Academy of Learning, or REAL. They've toured our Mission Creek facility basins. They're part of a class there that's held at the high school, and they learned about our water supply and our sustainability efforts at the aquifer. Not a large group, but I was told they were very excited to go out there and learn about the recharge basins. So here is our system leak data information. Again, our leading contender, Avenida Caballeros, with 6 leaks. And that project should be started here within weeks. And once that's complete, we'll be able to knock this off our list, which will be great news for us. It's been on our list for several years here. And then our final is just activities and meetings. Again, there were 5 mediation meetings over the last couple of weeks, so that's dominating the meeting calendar. We also had a Conservation and Public Affairs meeting on the 28th. And that concludes the report, so I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Director Gracia, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Thank you.
No
Director Boomer?
questions.
No? Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
Avenida Caballeros. It's our most frequent flyer when it comes to leaks, and it's still not started. What's happening exactly?
Yeah, so initially there was delays in material. The contractor came back and so they submitted a schedule. They then came back and said that there were some issues with getting a couple of valves that were required, which was not anticipated as far as this delay. That has seemed to be resolved, and now they are on track as far as going to start the project here within, what would you say, David? We've been told in 2 weeks they'll be on site and ready to go. So, and the clock is ticking on them as far as in the contract. There's a time limit, or there's a construction schedule, dates or amount of days they're required to install once the official word is given to them that they are to start. And that has been handed to them. So they do have a certain number of days now to complete the work. If they do not complete, they are subject to liquidated damages.
We have a rather nice podium here. I would like to suggest we have somebody from that contractor come tell us in our next meeting exactly what they're going to do, when they're going to do it.
Yeah, we can talk to them and see if there's a project manager who can
Yeah,
provide a
I'd like to
schedule
hear
for
from
them.
Not a
Yeah.
criticism of you guys, but I think a little pressure might be good.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you. Vice President Bowman?
Yes, I have a question. I had the privilege of flying over the Windy Point settling ponds, and I noticed they were empty. What's the current status of those?
So currently, right now, the aqueduct is going through their maintenance for the month of March. It will be shut down for the entire month for MWD to maintain the canal, the channels, and some of their electrical equipment. And that is scheduled to be completed end of, I don't remember the exact date, but it's basically the end of March.
Very good, thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, and I have a couple of follow-ups with questions that are, or things that have already been asked. With regard to Avenida Caballeros and the alleged, start of this project, can you first remind me of the stretch of road that we're actually talking about, or perhaps that's going to be staggered in terms of the amount or length?
This will be from Ramon Road to Tockwitz Canyon.
Okay.
Oh, just short of Tockwitz Canyon. I don't remember, what's the name of the street that we in there?
That's
But it's
fine.
just short. It's between that stretch of run.
So
There is a gap. Thank you, David, for reminding me. There is a gap of this work that will not be completed because of we have to go under an existing storm channel that is it's a Army Corps of Engineers.
right, I remember that.
And because of that work, we have to have them review the plans, which
Right.
we're in the process of that.
Mhm.
That work will hopefully they'll have the review done by the end of this year, and then we'll go in and put in the remaining stretch, which is a bore and jack installation work.
And approximately how long, once the project begins, do we anticipate it taking?
What's their schedule on that, David? That's for Caballeros. About 4 months.
Okay. The reason I'm asking these questions is with this project that's going on with the storm channel going through Ramon and causing quite a lot of headache with traffic in this town, and you add on top of that the wind events and the rain events that have closed roads again and again and again. I'm hearing from a lot of people that they're very unhappy right now. People that live in the city, people that work in the city, people that travel through the city on a regular basis. I'm concerned about what kind of negative impact we might receive based on whether the perception will be, here we go, another road being torn up. A major road, by the way.
Yeah, I understand that. We get those complaints even when there aren't other projects going on.
Sure.
What we will try to do is mitigate that by just ensuring that the public is aware of the schedule, having our public outreach out there, being very active on social media, and keeping our website informed, and hopefully cool heads prevail, and we can we have a good plan as far as our plans are very well engineered, and we don't anticipate any potential conflicts that the contractor may run into, which will help expedite his work. And
Okay, yeah. I
and we
think-
do work with we work with the city as far as communications
Sure.
with their inspectors and so forth. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really more concerned about the perception more than anything. I mean, we all know that this is vitally important, and there's certainly, when constituents come to me and say, why is this happening? Why are you messing with my, ability to get to whatever, the convention center or something? It's important to remind them that this is part of how we can continue to provide water to a lot of neighborhoods that rely on that particular line. And how much infrastructure that we have to take care of. But it still could be out there. So that's why I bring it up. The other is a follow up to the aqueduct maintenance. I think when we were in Indian Wells for the last Aqua conference, and we got together with Metropolitan and Coachella Valley Water District, and that came up, and I had suggested that might be a great opportunity for us to take a tour of part of the aqueduct because it's not being operated at that point. I don't know where that might have gone to.
So we did discuss this with when we met back in February, and they took that into consideration. There's a lot that has to go into that type of planning. We have not heard back from them on that, but I can reach out to them and see if there's any opportunity for a potential tour of a stretch of the aqueduct that is under repair right now or so forth. We've also asked them about potential tours of the tunnel that runs under Mount San Jacinto, so they were going to get back with us on that too.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else. So with that, we can move to item 10, which is director's reports on meetings and events attended on behalf of the agency. Please, each board member report out on any meetings or events recently attended on behalf of the agency, which would be compensable events, and also let us know the date of the event and the organization. And with that, we'll start with Director Grasha.
Thank you. Going back to the 20th, our last board meeting, I attended the Urban Water Institute's spring conference here in Palm Springs. The dates were February 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And then on February 27th, the Coachella Valley Water District Board meeting. On the 28th, the Conservation and Public Affairs Committee meeting for Desert Water Agency. And on the 29th, I had two competing events, so you can pick which one. I don't know. The AWA event, I've got to say, in Palm Desert was extraordinary. I guess you guys were in Washington maybe, but top two events I've attended since been on the board, I think. And also the executive committee meeting for the agency, Desert Water Agency, on the same day. And thanks to Tara Bravo for juggling the calendar. So I missed the first hour or two of that AWA event in Palm Desert, and she switched around the calendar so that I was able to hear Robert Chang from CVWD later in the morning. It was very, very helpful. And looks like that's it. Brings us to today.
Okay, thank you. Director Bloomer.
There we go. We had a tribal mediation meeting on February 21st, And then I was also at Urban Water Institute on, it's the 21st, 22nd, 23rd as well. And they had good attendance, and they kind of changed the way that they did the conference. So I thought the panels were and conversations were improved this year in the scheduling. They left more time for networking as well. And then I was at the Aqua Conference February 26th through the 29th. And I won't talk about everything, so then Director McKenna can also speak to this. But we did have a great panel on how to lobby your congressional representatives before we actually went and did it, so that was good. And then on Director Sines was also with us in DC, and we then had 3 great meetings on Thursday right before we rushed off to the airport. We met with Senator Butler's office, Ken Calvert's office, and also Dr. Ruiz's office, and they were all great meetings. So it was a good conference and a good trip, and I think we accomplished a lot. And that's all I'll say. Thanks.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Well, this might take a while.
Okay.
On the 20th, I went to Mission Springs Water District Board meeting, and I went in person. I do enjoy going there. They had a really interesting meeting. They were discussing Chromium-6. They were discussing Senator Padilla's introduction of a low-income home water assistance federal bill. Mission Springs is now introducing smart irrigation controls as part of their rebate program. And I think we have that too. And they're moving to 1.1 gallon dual flush toilets as part of their rebate plan. Their director, Martin, said he was impressed with his visit to our Snow Creek facility, which he took with Aqua. And I think you organized that. So then on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, I attended the Urban Water Institute in spring conference. It wasn't very spring-like. It was chilly here in Palm Springs. Affordability was very high on the minds of several people I spoke to. Affordability of water is an issue already. It will be much, much worse in 10 years' time when people will probably be paying twice as much for water as they are now. Now, at my house, water bill is already bigger than my gas, electric, and internet bill combined. So we have assistance programs for some of these for all of those other utilities. We have nothing much in the way of water. I've talked about it before. I will talk about it again. We had a great talk from Jeff Keitlinger, who was the former general manager of the Metropolitan Water District, is now working with the Imperial Irrigation District on Colorado River matters. And I think that's an excellent piece of positioning because we are physically dependent on Colorado River water, as you all know. So there's problems there. Moving on from there, I went to Washington, D.C. on the 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th. And just like Director Brumer said, we got a briefing on how to lobby members of Congress. And I think I was counting up to 4 things that I did last year that they said don't do. So it was useful, informative. Then we went to meet with these congressmen. So we met with Congressman Calvert's staff. He's very solid on water issues. I'm not a fan of his politically, but he really knows what's going on in the water business. Congressman Jim Costa from Central California, another speaker at our meeting, another one very, very well informed and thoroughly positive on water issues. And that area is important to us too. We met with Congressman Ruiz personally in his office for about 30 minutes. Tremendously impressed with him. His backstory is wonderful, but he's also on the ball when it comes to water. So he knew us very well. So that was a great meeting. What else on Washington? I will probably have left something out. Let's see. We were there actually during the week, the continuing resolution to keep the government from shutting down including, some quite water-sensitive departments. And it was agreed on the second to last day of our visit, so hopefully we had some influence on that. We talked to Senator Butler's staff about low-income home water assistance, low-income assistance, I'm just going to call it. And we got an email the next day saying that bill was being introduced. So this is the one that died at least twice with Senator Feinstein's efforts before she died. And it's back on the floor. So hopefully something will happen there. We were advised that the states and the tribes should work out the Colorado River issues themselves and try not to get the federal government involved, because if Congress gets involved, it will take another 100 years to get a deal. and I believe that. Things move very slowly in Washington. That's it for me on meetings. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman?
Yes, I had the principals meeting on the 21st. And then on the 28th, the Agua Caliente Water Authority, also called AQUA. There's all these acronyms that is like, wait a minute, they're overlapping. And I saw another one just the other day about DHS. I wish I could remember what it stood for, but Department of Homeland Security, Desert Hot Springs, and there was another one. Anyway, the Agua Caliente Water Authority is putting together a grant program for their pumpers that will give them some rebates for water conservation. And so they're putting this out. I thought that was very interesting that they're putting that together for the private pumpers on their land. And then there was a general question about calcium in the water. One of their board members said, what about the sprinkler heads getting clogged up with calcium? And so their staff said, well, we'll get back to you on some of those items. And I thought that was interesting. And then I went to Idaho, where our daughter celebrated the grand opening of their business warehouse headquarters, and it was quite awesome. That's why I flew over the Windy Point and the Worsley Ponds and saw them empty.
Thank you. All right, so since our last board meeting, I also attended the Urban Water Institute conference on the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd of February. I did really, I thought that was, as Director Bloomer had mentioned, I thought the change in the format was a good one. It's not a huge conference. I don't even remember how many were attending. Seemed like it was maybe 150 or something like that. But I thought some of the programs were really, really good, and the quality of the speakers was excellent. Several that stood out. First of all, there was one called Loaves and Fishes, which was about water and agriculture in California. And the Secretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture, Karen Ross, I was very impressed. I mean, she's a huge cheerleader for California agriculture, and someone who came from Nebraska and moved to California when she was younger. And her knowledge of California agriculture was amazing, I thought. Another panel that was on Science Matters, and I think actually goes back to the affordability question that Secretary Treasurer McKenna had mentioned. Dr. Namadi from the University of California, Riverside, who I heard speak last year, about this time last year at UCR on a day conference on affordability. It was pretty much the same presentation, but doing a lot of research with Southern California water agencies, a couple of Southern California water agencies, to talk about how programs can be targeted to water users, using a lot of data to sort of hone in on who those customers might be that possibly would get behind on their bills or might even face shut off, and targeting programs to them to help that not to happen. So that was very interesting. At the same panel, included a Dr. David Sedlak from the University of California at Berkeley, who I thought was also a very interesting speaker on the global solutions for climate change that had to do with looking at some of the things that have happened in what would mostly be called developed countries as it relates to the use of water, and how that might some of that might be helpful for so-called developing countries where water use is perhaps increasing because of population growth as well as industrialization and farming and so on. I ended up buying his book, and I'll have that available to any of the other members of this board who would like to look at that. Then the program that really resonated with me that same day on Thursday, the 22nd, was on water communications, and in particular, Maurice De Pasquale, who's a member of the board of the Mesa Water District in Costa Mesa. And she talked about how the agency there had one of these water stores appear across the street from their headquarters in Costa Mesa, and she's mentioned that a lot of people think of Costa Mesa as a very wealthy community, but the truth is they have a very large lower income community that they serve, and that these bottle stations or water stations, which of course we see here in the Coachella Valley as well. I go to my local Ralph's and I see one right there, and it makes me crazy to see it. And so their response to that was to install their own machine and charge everybody a nickel for filling a water, these giant water bottles, as opposed to whatever the other going rate for the commercial enterprise across the street. And realizing that the people predominantly that are using that kind of service are often people that are not born in the United States, most often come from Latin America. And the tradition there, or the practice there, is to purchase water separate from the water that comes out of their tap. And so realizing that it's a mindset that really may have actually served them well in their home country, but doesn't serve them well in this country, especially when they should not be afraid to drink the tap water that comes out of comes into their home. But it was a really, I think, a very it was sort of, you might call it a stunt, but I thought that maybe we should have one of those out in front, or maybe we should have them in supermarket neighborhoods and charging people a nickel, because we all know that water is just our water coming through a dispenser, and may not even be at the same level of quality and standards, because it's not necessarily, no one's testing that water. So I thought that was kind of a fun little talk, and I think that's really all I have to report from that particular program. Was on last Friday. What was the date for last Friday? The 1st of March. The Region 9 board met to plan an event for, as some of you probably all know, and the board here, we've been invited to these events in the past where each region for Aqua puts together a program for the day. And Region 9 is planning a program scheduled for mid-August that will be probably in Temecula, or it could possibly be in Murrieta, but more likely to Temecula. One of our board members is on the board of Rancho Water, and they will likely host this event for Aqua Region 9, and it will be on workforce development. It's not something that we typically think of, or at least in these events that I've been to in the past, which have been very water-specific focused, some kind of program having to do with water. But we all know that water agencies, along with a lot of other public agencies and utilities, are challenged these days in finding new people, bringing them into the workforce, encouraging them to look at careers in the water industry. And so that day is going to be focused on workforce development. And there will be a survey going out to the water agencies from Aqua very soon, to the Region 9 members, asking them for some input on what that program could look like. So again, that will be sometime in August. I believe the 13th is the tentative date in Temecula, and I'm sure there will be wine involved at some point. But and then of course the standard meetings as well, the conservation and public affairs meeting that Director Grasha mentioned, as well as the executive committee. And with that, I have nothing else to report. So um, let's see, we can move on to item 11, which would be director's comments and requests. And I'll start with Director Grasha.
A couple of comments. I noticed on the Aqua calendar, popped up yesterday, a Region 9 event in April. April 12th at the Inland Empire Utilities Agency. So I thought I would mention that. Also, I want to thank staff for the extraordinary work you did at Mission Springs Water District last month in your presentation. And that's that.
Okay, thank you. Director Bloomer.
I just wanted to make a note, I will not be present at the April 2nd board meeting. I don't know if anyone else has conflicting
I don't.
travel, so.
All right. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
I want to mention, because the constituent asked me to mention, conservation. When we impose restrictions, we impose across-the-board percentage on conservation. And my constituent says, Desert Hot Springs residents already use half as much water as the people in Palm Springs. Why are we on the same percentage? And I just wanted to put on record, the state imposes these percentages on us, and we have no choice. But maybe in the future, we will get some flexibility. I know that new program is coming out that will mandate conservation district by district, so maybe we'll do something better. I want to just, you reminded me of the vending machine that Costa Mesa Water District put in front of their office. They charge 5 cents a gallon. They sold 70,000 gallons of water that way in the first year. There are lines along, outside their office of people filling water bottles with 5 cents a gallon water. So we need to look for some way maybe to give people more confidence in the water that comes out of their faucets. And I had an idea that we might emulate Leslie's pool supply and offer tests. Now, they're probably going to go nuts over there, but it's an idea. I'd like to find out what it would cost to test people's water if they brought a sample in here. We probably couldn't get a good reading on chlorine because it will dissipate, but we might find a way to make people more confident of the water that comes out of their faucet. If they could bring it in here, we could do an individual test for them and give them a printout and say, this is what your water is. And maybe we'll convince them it's every bit as good as that bottled water that we fight against all the time. So that's it for me. Thanks.
And I would add that the only reason they charged 5 cents is because they couldn't find a vending machine that would take a penny. All right, Vice President Bowman.
Nothing from me.
All right, thank you. And just a follow up to Director Grasha, yes, that's the Region 9, that meeting that you mentioned on April 12th is the Region 9 board meeting, which of course everybody in Region 9 is invited to attend. And they are planning some kind of program to go along with that board meeting, and I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but I'm sure we'll find out soon.
I was just happy to see it on the front page of the events calendar.
Yeah.
So everybody will see it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And one other comment that I want to add is to welcome our new general manager and new assistant general manager on your first official day as participants in your new roles at the board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess with that, we can move into closed session. It is just shy of 9 o'clock. If we could meet in the board room at 10 after. And with that, thank you to members of the public for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Are we ready? Okay, thank you. Right, so at this point, I'm reconvening our meeting into open session. I can tell you that we have nothing, no reportable action to to report. And with that, we can adjourn the meeting until next time, 2 weeks from now. Thank you.